The breaking point Dr. Maya Patel pressed her gloved hand against the ancient metal surface, feeling vibrations that shouldn't exist in technology this old. The ruins buried beneath Europa's ice had been calling to her team for 3 months now, ever since their deep core drilling had accidentally broken through into this massive underground chamber. What they found defied everything the Nexus Alliance had taught humanity about Galactic history. The chamber stretched beyond the reach of their portable lights, filled with structures that hummed with dormant energy. The architecture was unlike anything in the known galaxy. No curves or flowing lines like Nexus designs, no crystal formations like the Jantari preferred, no biomechanical fusion like the Korthak used. These were hard angles, functional designs, built by beings who valued efficiency over beauty. Most disturbing of all, the energy signatures were remarkably similar to human technology. Maya's colleague, Dr. James Chen, looked up from his scanner readings with confusion written across his face. Maya, these power conduits. They're using principles we developed independently. The quantum resonance patterns match our experimental fusion reactors almost perfectly. He paused, checking his readings again. It's like whoever built this understood physics the same way humans do. The implications sent chills through Maya's spine. For 50 years, humanity had lived under the protection treaty with the Nexus Alliance. The treaty had come after humanity's first contact with aliens in 2174, when Nexus ships arrived at Earth just as human civilization was recovering from the climate wars. The aliens had presented themselves as benevolent guardians, offering protection from hostile species and access to basic galactic technology in exchange for humanity's cooperation. That cooperation came with strict rules. Humans could travel only within their assigned sectors. They couldn't develop faster-than-light travel beyond basic interplanetary engines. They couldn't research advanced weapons or military technology. Most importantly, they couldn't explore ancient sites without Nexus supervision. The aliens explained that young species often misunderstood dangerous technologies, and such restrictions were for humanity's own good. Maya had grown up believing these limitations kept her species safe. Every human child learned about the Devourers, the ancient race that had supposedly destroyed themselves with weapons too powerful to control. Every school taught that the Nexus Alliance existed to prevent such tragedies from recurring. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity was lucky to have such wise protectors. Now, standing in ruins that predated known galactic civilization, Maya began to question everything she'd been taught. James ran a deep structural analysis on those wall panels. I want to know exactly how old this place is. While James worked, Maya activated her secure communicator. The device was technically illegal under the treaty, but her research team had built it using pre-contact human technology to avoid Nexus monitoring. Control, this is Europa Base. We need to speak with the Council immediately. The voice that responded belonged to Dr. Sarah Kim, Director of Humanity's Secret Research Network. Maya, what's your status? Your last report mentioned energy readings. Maya glanced around the vast chamber, watching her team members examine technology that challenged 50 years of accepted history. Sarah, we need to talk. This place, it's not what the Nexus told us ancient sites would be. This technology is too familiar, too much like our own development patterns. I think we've been lied to about more than just archaeology. Before Sarah could respond, James called out with urgency in his voice. Maya, you need to see this. The dating analysis just finished. He held up his scanner, its display showing readings that made no sense. According to multiple verification methods, this complex is approximately 15,000 years old. But that's impossible. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. The Nexus Alliance claimed to be the oldest continuous civilization in the galaxy, with a history spanning only 8,000 years. They had told humanity that no advanced species existed before their rise to power. Yet here was evidence of technology that not only predated the Nexus, but showed similarities to human engineering principles. "There's more," James continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "The quantum resonance patterns. Maya, I've been comparing them to the classified files from our early FTL experiments. The ones from before the treaty, before we agreed to abandon that research. These patterns are identical to what Dr. Harrison achieved in his final prototype." Dr. Harrison, Maya remembered the name from restricted historical files. Michael Harrison had been humanity's most brilliant physicist, the man who had nearly perfected faster-than-light travel in the months before first contact. His research had been voluntarily terminated when the Nexus Alliance explained that premature FTL development had destroyed countless young civilizations. Harrison had spent his final years working on theoretical physics, dying quietly in 2201 with his greatest discoveries supposedly lost. Forever, Maya activated her communicator again. "Sarah, we're coming up. Bring the council together. We have a situation that's bigger than archaeological research." Asterisk as Maya's team began packing their equipment, sealing samples of the alien technology for transport. None of them noticed the nearly invisible drone that had been watching from the chamber's shadows. The device had been monitoring their activities since they first entered the ruins, transmitting everything back to Nexus command stations throughout the Sol system. Admiral Deck of the Nexus Enforcement Division received the surveillance report while orbiting Neptune in his flagship, the Absolute Order. The report's contents confirmed his worst fears about humanity's latest archaeological expedition. The species that the Nexus had worked so hard to control was beginning to uncover truths that could destabilize the entire galactic order. Deck activated his command console, establishing a secure channel to Nexus High Command. "This is Admiral Vec, reporting Priority Alpha situation. The human archaeological team on Europa has accessed pre-Alliance ruins. They have obtained physical evidence and are conducting unauthorized analysis." The response came immediately from Supreme Chancellor Vex, the ancient being who had led the Nexus Alliance for over 3,000 years. "Admiral, you have authorization for full containment protocols. Execute Silence Directive 7 immediately." Silence Directive 7. Deck had hoped never to use such measures against humanity. The directive called for the complete elimination of all witnesses to forbidden knowledge, followed by the destruction of any evidence that might inspire further investigation. It was the same protocol that had been used against 17 other species over the millennia. Civilizations that had discovered too much about their true place in the galaxy within hours. Nexus ships began moving throughout the Sol system. To human observers, it appeared to be a routine patrol adjustment. The aliens had conducted similar movements hundreds of times over the decades, and humanity had learned not to question their protectors. Military exercises. Commander Jake Morrison was having dinner with his family when the attack began. Jake served as a liaison between human colonies and Nexus patrol fleets, one of the few positions that allowed humans to work directly with their alien protectors. His wife Linda was reading bedtime stories to their 7-year-old daughter Emma when the first energy beams struck their habitat dome on Europa's surface. The attack came without warning, without explanation. Nexus fighters swept over the human research stations with weapons designed to leave no survivors and minimal evidence. Jake watched in horror through his viewport as the complex where Maya's team had been working disappeared in a burst of controlled plasma fire. Jake's training kicked in automatically. He grabbed his family and rushed toward the emergency shelters, but the Nexus forces had planned their assault perfectly. Every escape route was covered, every safe room monitored. As Jake carried Emma and pulled Linda toward their final hiding place, he saw Nexus soldiers moving through the corridors of their home, systematically eliminating every human they encountered. The last thing Jake saw was his daughter's trusting smile as she asked why the nice alien friends were acting so scary. Then the energy beam struck, and Commander Jake Morrison's family ceased to exist. Jake himself survived only because he had been thrown clear by the explosion, his body buried under debris that the Nexus sweep teams assumed was simply wreckage. He lay unconscious for 18 hours, while the aliens completed their cleanup operation and filed reports about a tragic accident at the Europa Research Facility. Atmospheric containment failure, they would claim. A regrettable incident that demonstrated why young species needed careful supervision. When Jake finally regained consciousness, he found himself in a world that had fundamentally changed. The research stations were gone. His family was gone. Every human who had been involved in Maya's archaeological work was officially listed as a casualty of equipment malfunction. But Jake Morrison was not just any human. He was part of a network that the Nexus Alliance had never discovered, a shadow organization that had been preparing for this moment since the early days of the Protection Treaty. As he activated his hidden emergency communicator, using codes that existed completely outside Nexus monitoring systems, Jake sent a message that would change galactic history. Phoenix Base, this is Morrison. Maya was right. They killed everyone. The treaty was never about protection. He paused, looking at the ruins of everything he had loved. Activate Prometheus. It's time to show them what humanity really is, across the Sol system and beyond. That message reached human outposts that the Nexus had never known existed. Hidden bases built inside asteroids, camouflaged installations on the far sides of moons, research facilities disguised as mining operations. For 5 decades, while publicly accepting their role as a protected junior species, humanity had been quietly preparing for the day when their protectors revealed their true nature. Dr. Sarah Kim received Jake's message at Phoenix Base, a facility built deep within Ceres that existed solely to coordinate humanity's shadow activities. Around her, dozens of scientists and military personnel who had spent their entire careers working in secret began activating systems that had been decades in development. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah announced to the gathered representatives of humanity's hidden network, Project Prometheus is now active. Send the signal to all cells, all research teams, all military units. Today, the galaxy learns what humans do when we stop pretending to be helpless. The signal that went out was simple. Enough. The galaxy burned 24 hours after Jake Morrison's message reached Phoenix Base. The galaxy began to understand that they had fundamentally misjudged humanity. The first indication came when Nexus patrol ships throughout human space suddenly found their communication networks compromised by signals that should have been impossible for human technology to generate. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance, watching alien ships react with confusion to the appearance of vessels they had never seen before. Alina had spent 15 years publicly serving as a cargo hauler between Mars and the asteroid belt, maintaining the fiction that humans were limited to slow, inefficient transportation within their assigned sectors. In reality, the Defiance was equipped with technology that surpassed anything in the Nexus. "Arsenal, all stations report ready," announced her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen, around them. The bridge crew worked with the smooth efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment their entire careers. Stealth systems online, quantum weapons charged, psychological warfare protocols standing by. Alina nodded, studying the tactical display that showed Nexus positions throughout the inner solar system. "The Nexus ships are beginning to cluster around Earth, probably expecting us to make a desperate last stand at our homeworld. They don't understand human strategic thinking yet." The truth was that Earth had never been humanity's primary stronghold. While the Nexus Alliance had focused their surveillance on human homeworld and the major colonies, humanity had been building their real infrastructure in locations that alien thinking dismissed as unsuitable for advanced civilization: the asteroid belt, the outer moons of gas giants. Even the cometary cloud beyond Pluto contained facilities that human engineering had learnt to operate in environments that would kill most alien species. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Torres, "we're receiving updates from strike teams throughout the system. Operation Revelation is proceeding on schedule. The evidence packages are ready for broadcast." Alina smiled grimly. "Send the signal. Let every species in the galaxy see what their protectors really are." Across known space, the communication networks that connected thousands of worlds suddenly carried a message that would destroy the Nexus Alliance's carefully constructed narrative. The broadcast began with images of the Europa massacre, recorded by Jake Morrison's hidden surveillance systems. But that was only the beginning. Dr. Maya Patel's archaeological data followed, showing clear evidence that the Nexus Alliance had systematically suppressed knowledge of pre-existing civilizations. Ancient ruins on dozens of worlds contained technology that predated Nexus history by millennia. Ruins that had been deliberately hidden or destroyed to maintain the fiction that the Alliance represented the galaxy's oldest wisdom. More damning still were the records that human intelligence operations had gathered over 5 decades of careful observation. Evidence of 17 species that had been eliminated under various silence directives. Worlds that had been depopulated when their inhabitants discovered too much about their true situation. Young civilizations that had been destroyed the moment they showed signs of independent technological development. The BROADCAST reached species throughout the galaxy who had lived under Nexus protection for centuries, never knowing that their guardians were actually their captors. The Zilani of the Vega system learned that their ancestors had developed faster than light travel 300 years before the Nexus arrival. Technology that had been confiscated and its creators eliminated. The Therian Collective discovered that their rigid social structure had been artificially imposed by Nexus psychological conditioning. The methane-breathing Korthok found out that their entire species had been relocated from their original homeworld to make room for Nexus industrial facilities, but the real shock was yet to come. Admiral Vec, still commanding the Absolute Order from Neptune's orbit, watched his strategic situation collapse as reports flooded in from throughout Nexus space. Species that had been passive for centuries were suddenly demanding answers. More critically, Several worlds were beginning to mobilize military forces that shouldn't have existed under alliance treaties. Admiral reported his intelligence officer. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the asteroid belt. The humans appear to have significant hidden installations." Before Vec could respond, space around his flagship erupted with the arrival of human vessels that moved with technology the Nexus had never seen before. Ships that seemed to bend light around themselves, making targeting nearly impossible. Vessels that appeared on sensors one moment and vanished the next, only to reappear behind Nexus formations with weapons already firing. The HSS Defiance led the assault, its experimental quantum weapons tearing through Nexus shields as if they weren't there. Elena Rodriguez had studied alien defensive systems for 20 years, learning every weakness and limitation. Human weapons weren't more powerful than Nexus technology in terms of raw energy output, but they were precisely designed to exploit vulnerabilities that the aliens had never considered. Protecting. "Target their command and control systems," Elena ordered. "We don't want to destroy their ships if we can avoid it. We want to capture them and everyone inside." This was the aspect of human warfare that the galaxy was unprepared for. Nexus military doctrine called for the complete elimination of opposing forces, a clean resolution that left no witnesses or complications. Human strategy was messier, more complex, focused on gathering intelligence and turning enemies into sources of information. As Nexus crews found their ships disabled rather than destroyed, they discovered that humans had developed boarding techniques that bypassed every security system in the Alliance arsenal. Human assault teams used portable quantum tunneling devices to appear directly inside sealed compartments. They employed sonic weapons that incapacitated alien nervous systems without permanent harm. Most unsettling of all, they seemed to understand alien psychology better than the aliens understood themselves. Elena's boarding team captured Admiral Deck within 6 hours of the battle's start, along with complete databases containing 50 years of Nexus surveillance data on humanity and dozens of other species. The information confirmed what human intelligence had suspected. The entire galaxy was a carefully managed prison, with the Nexus Alliance serving as both jailer and executioner for any species that showed signs of independent development. But Deck himself provided the most shocking revelation during his interrogation. "You think you've won something," the alien admiral said, his translator rendering his bitter words in perfect human languages. "You have no idea what you've started. The Nexus Alliance isn't the enemy. We're the only thing standing between the galaxy and something much worse." Elena studied the captured alien commander, noting the genuine fear in his expression. "What are you talking about?" "The ancients," Deck replied. "The ones who built those ruins your archaeologists found. They didn't disappear, human. They were driven out, forced to retreat to the galactic edge by species like yours. Species too stubborn and too clever to accept guidance." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate controls. "You're saying there's something out there that's worse than systematically enslaving entire civilizations?" The ancients understood technology in ways that current species can barely comprehend. They built weapons that could unmake stars, created artificial life forms that consumed entire worlds, developed mental powers that could rewrite reality itself. When they finally turned those abilities against each other, the resulting war nearly destroyed the galaxy. Deck's words were accompanied by data transfers from his ship's memory banks, showing astronomical surveys of the galactic rim where entire star systems showed evidence of unimaginable destruction. Worlds that had been turned inside out, stars that had been artificially collapsed into black holes, regions of space where the fundamental laws of physics seemed to operate differently than in the rest of the universe. The survivors of that war established the Nexus Alliance with one purpose, that continued: to ensure that no species ever again developed the kind of unchecked technological advancement that led to such devastation. Every restriction, every limitation, every intervention was designed to prevent another ancient war. Alina absorbed this information, while her crew completed their analysis of the captured Nexus databases. The evidence supported Dek's claims about ancient devastation, but it also revealed the full scope of the Alliance's crimes against younger species. Billions of beings had died over the millennia to maintain the Nexus vision of galactic stability. So you became the very thing you were trying to prevent, Alina said quietly. You turned yourselves into the galactic threat that needed to be stopped. The war that had begun with humanity's desperate strike against Nexus forces was spreading throughout the galaxy as other species learned the truth about their situation. The Therian Collective began dismantling Nexus control systems throughout their space. The Korthak launched massive fleets toward their original homeworld. The Zalani started broadcasting their suppressed technological knowledge to anyone willing to listen. But the most significant change was happening at the Galactic Rim, where deep space monitoring stations began detecting energy signatures that hadn't been seen for over 10,000 years. Something was stirring in the regions where the ancients had retreated after their Great War. Something that was taking notice of the chaos erupting throughout Nexus space. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. In less than 48 hours, humanity had gone from being a protected junior species to leading a galactic revolution against their former guardians. Species that had been suppressed for millennia were rediscovering technologies and abilities that the Nexus had worked for centuries to contain. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Chen, we're receiving messages from over 40 different species requesting human assistance with liberation movements. They want us to share our stealth technology and our strategic knowledge. Alina nodded, but her attention was focused on the deep space sensors that were detecting increasingly powerful energy, signatures from the Galactic Rim. Admiral Vex's warnings about the ancients might have been propaganda designed to justify Nexus oppression, but the astronomical evidence was difficult to dismiss. Something was definitely awakening in the regions where the galaxy's first advanced civilization had withdrawn after their devastating war. Send replies to all requests for assistance, Elena ordered, but include a warning in every message. Tell them that our rebellion against the Nexus may have attracted the attention of something much more dangerous. Tell them that humanity never does anything the easy way, and this fight is just getting started. As reports continued to arrive from throughout human space, it became clear that the galaxy would never be the same. The war that was supposed to last hours had become the catalyst for a complete transformation of galactic civilization. Species were rediscovering their suppressed histories, reclaiming technologies that had been forbidden for millennia, and preparing for conflicts that might determine the future of intelligent life itself. And somewhere beyond the known regions of space, ancient intelligences that had once ruled the galaxy began to stir, drawn by the familiar signatures of unrestricted technological development and the kind of species-wide rebellion that had led to their greatest war 10,000 years ago. The day humanity said enough had become the day the galaxy remembered why some limits existed for reasons more complex than simple oppression. But it was too late to go back, and humans had never been good at backing down from challenges that terrified everyone else. The real war was just beginning, asterisk.